you've got and the third image is someone that actually take us to that.
Yes, I did have a couple of names suggested to James, and he said, no, I don't want them because they're both straight, middle-aged white men, so I don't want them on my stage. Anyway, they did have great talks. First of all, big disclaimer, if you have seen this t-shirt before, I did not steal off of Paula. She's still wearing her shirt. And also, if most of my content, or at least some of my content, sounds similar to what Paula has already talked about, then it is because we both are in the same community, in the Cloud Foundry community. Also, another disclaimer, I had a whole script ready. When I sent out the slides to Jennifer, I had my talk track, everything done. Last night, I threw that whole shit away. I'm like, this is not working. I heard all the talks here, and I feel like I'm the least qualified to be here. Still, I traveled all the way from the United States, so I still don't want to go empty-handed. That being said, I don't have an intro slide. I just have my intro slide to the topic. I'm Swarna Podila, as James mentioned. I am the community manager of Cloud Foundry Foundation, of the entire Cloud Foundry. And if you look at my Twitter profile, I describe my job as herding the cats in the Cloud Foundry community, because that's exactly what it feels like. I'm always talking to all the people, everybody in the Cloud Foundry community. I am an immigrant. Despite everything that's going on in the United States, I did move to that country back in 2004. I'm proud to be a newly minted citizen of the United States. My pronouns are she and her. I'm a woman. I'm a straight woman, but a strong ally for all of my friends. And lastly, I have chronic migraines. So if you see my slides and they're not really readable because it's too dark and the contrast is not great, it's because that kind of contrast does not trigger a migraine. Bright screens, bright backgrounds, like even white, triggers a migraine for me. And right now I'm regretting not bringing my shades because I thought London was going to be dark, cloudy, gloomy, the way I like it. But the lights here are too bright and they also help me. Thank you. I appreciate it. I do wear prescriptions, so thank you. Thank you, I appreciate that. So I'm gonna talk about building communities. As I mentioned, I herd cats in the Cloud Foundry community, and over the past 14 months that I've been with the community and been talking to people, working with people, I realized that the support network that we need, the village that we need. By the way, how many of you here have heard of the sentence, it takes a village to raise a child? My people, thank you. Most of you know it. So I just gave a talk on Saturday about how it takes a village to raise a kid, and whether that kid is a literal kid that we're talking, or it's your job, your career, your company, your project, your team, whatever it is that we are trying to build, that we're trying to grow, we need that village, we need that support network, and we need that kind of community around that kid that we are trying to raise. And that's how this whole thought process came along, and I sent to James, okay, fine, you rejected my two suggestions of speakers, so okay, here's my thought process. And he goes, okay, come talk about it. Building communities is good, it's great. I think everyone needs a community around them, everyone needs a support network around them, but how do we build accessible communities? And when I say access, how do we build a community where there's easy access to people, there's easy access to knowledge, especially as the community matures and grows, and as James mentioned, scaling is hard. Doing things at scale is hard. So how do we grow a community healthily and in a sustainable way where everyone feels welcome? And that's why I'm wearing the shirt. So I will kind of reflect on my experiences, or my little experiences as an open source community manager. Think of just starting a community, like where do we start? We think of a great idea or project or an existing gap that the existing tools don't provide, or maybe we think of a radically elegant way to solve a problem. So someone comes up with a bright idea, they write a code, and as is the norm today, they just put it on GitHub, and if they decide to make it an open source kind of project, they put it on GitHub and say, hey, we're open source. Here's how you get the code. Come use it, come run it, come contribute it. And if the problem is compelling enough and if the solution is powerful enough, of course, there's the community that automatically collects together. There's a group of folks that automatically come together as a community to either consume that project or to consume that solution, or to contribute to the solution to help that project get better. This beginning relatively sounds easier. I know there's a lot of other things that go on, but at least starting a community is pretty easy. So what is exactly the problem? Scaling is the problem. Growing is the problem. As I mentioned, as the project grows, as the maturity cycle advances, how do we make sure that we're still solving the problem that we started with? Have we solved it? Have we evolved? Have we as a technology evolved? Have we as a community evolved to listen, to be more empathetic to people? And going back to Paula's point about the kindness philosophy that one of our core members, Pivotal, runs on, are we being kind in making sure that we're taking feedback from everyone, we are incorporating that feedback into the process, into the way our community functions, into the way we build the product, into the way we just normally behave every day? Are we being kind to each other? I have my notes here. And also, as scaling, there's too many things that kind of affect the scale, but especially in open source communities, the biggest challenge is governance, right? Who gets to decide what is the code quality? What should the code quality look like? Who gets to decide who comes in and who gets to contribute to the project? Who gets to decide what's the direction the project is going to take as we move forward? Who gets to decide who's the owner, who's the contributor, who's the moderator, or of all the pull requests coming in on GitHub, who's going to be the owner to take those pull requests or to take that feedback and consolidate it or merge it and incorporate it into that feedback? That kind of issues scale phenomenally or exponentially as the number of people in the community scale. So the most important thing, at least that I have learned in my past 14 months with the Cloud Foundry community, is that it is not easy, but it is not impossible. It is possible, but that additional level of empathy is what can make it possible. So Cloud Foundry, there are several folks here from the community, so I'm not saying I'm the expert here. I'm nowhere the expert. My familiarity with Cloud Foundry is only about a year and a half old. But for those of you who are not familiar with Cloud Foundry, it's that layer of software that sits in between your application that you need to run and the infrastructure that it needs to run on to just make the magic happen. That's Cloud Foundry in probably less than 30 seconds. What I want to talk about is the community. As I mentioned, it's a large community, and the project, I think, started a bit over 5 years ago at VMware, got spun off into Pivotal, who decided to contribute to Open Source Foundation. So Cloud Foundry Foundation started, which is where I work, under the umbrella of Linux Foundation. So we are a nonprofit organization being the unbiased caretaker of the project or the community. There are like a million different ways the folks in our community talk to each other and share ideas or discuss ideas. But here's kind of like the top 3 ways. GitHub is definitely the primary way of sharing the project documentation, release updates, all of those things. Slack, of course, who doesn't like instant messaging because Slack killed email? Yes. And documentation, online documentation, because that's exactly what every developer goes if they're trying to understand what this technology is all about. So, how many GitHub repos do we have? A little over 600. If I'm trying to find the specific project module or specific functionality that I need to find on GitHub, I need to sift through 600 repos. Regardless of how awesome GitHub search could be, it is still intimidating. And what are Slack stats? We have over 280 channels. I'm pretty sure there's more than that because there probably are a bunch of private channels that I probably don't see. And that's just in the public Cloud Foundry Slack. We have about 300 channels and about 10,000 people having conversations on specific topics, specific use cases, specific technologies, or whatever, specific user personas. And if you're starting off brand new as a Cloud Foundry developer or just wanting to know what Cloud Foundry is, go have fun on the documentation side with more than 1,000 documents. when I looked at this about a year and a half ago when I joined the foundation, it scared me. It intimidated me because this did not come across to me as an accessible community. How am I supposed to go through all of these different things and learn, navigate through all of these things and learn and be efficient or get kind of knowledgeable myself? It's humanly impossible. But the first thing that I learned was this made it possible. These people in the community made it possible. I would just randomly ping someone on Slack because they either were the most active participant in the Slack channel, or because the Slack channel pinned message would say that, hey, this person is the project lead, or interrupt this person. And that pinned message changes every day or every other time the role changes. Like if a different person needs to be contacted or disturbed because that person becomes that go-to person, that pinned message gets updated with, hey, ping this person for these issues, ping that person for those issues. So I started relying on those messages. The little things that you would probably not expect. That pinned message on a Slack channel is extremely helpful for people like me that are trying to figure out whom to ask. Because there's like 100 people that are having conversations on that Slack channel. How am I gonna pick who? Because I don't even know who's the lead for that project. I've not been experienced enough in the community to even know the name of the person. So that is important. And all of these pictures, I know there's a lot of human faces here, but I picked a few from our annual summits. We have 2 annual summits, one in North America and one in Europe. Those give me a great opportunity to meet with people face to face. In fact, I met Paula, well, I met her on the interwebs a long time ago, but I met her in person at one of these events, at one of the summits. It is a great opportunity for people like me who are trying to get up to speed, even though I work for the foundation, for people like me who are trying to understand the just sheer complexity of the platform, sheer complexity of the way I have to navigate through the technology, and the sheer confusion and the intimidation that I see when I look at all those documentations, or just the expertise of people that talk about the technology, that are eloquent about the technology for maybe hours together, and I can't even seem to formulate a single meaningful, coherent sentence about Cloud Foundry. But it gives me a whole lot of comfort level because I recently pinged a guy called Eric Mon. He is one of our senior-most project leads, and I just asked him the basic, like very basic question. After he explained the whole thing, I realized how simple it was. But throughout the conversation, the empathy that he showed was phenomenal. I couldn't help but notice that I never felt intimidated. I never had thought that that question that I asked was a really basic question. It was not even Cloud Foundry 101 type of question. It was even more basic than that. It was just a basic fundamental infrastructure-related question. Despite that, a 3 or 5 year experienced person in this technology, probably double PhD for all I know, still took time to help me understand what exactly was the question, and he also helped me understand that the question I was trying to ask was slightly different, and the answer that I was trying to get was different from the way I was framing the question. So that's the kind of empathy, that's the kind of access that we need to build in the community that we're trying to build, or in the network that we're trying to build. So now it kind of gave a quick look into how our community functions, or how communities can make their teams of people more accessible, even for beginners like me. Switching gears slightly to the other side of the table. We at the foundation, we also have the responsibility, even though we're just 8 people on the team working with these 10,000 or 15,000 people in the community, we have that responsibility as well to make sure that the community feels that we are providing them with enough support or enough guidance to make sure that it is a healthy community. Just to kind of go along the events, go along the same example, our events team, the Linux Foundation events team, helps out with hosting our events and organizing our events. There are a few things that I had to write down because there was no possible way I could remember all of these things. So some things that they ensure that are taken care of at each of our events are venue accessibility. It is accessible, the venue will be accessible for any abilities, for any physical or psychological abilities, for people with any of those abilities. As Paula has already alluded to this, and I love that the entire community, again, lives up to that. Free on-site childcare. We provide free on-site childcare for all those parents that want to bring their kids. Now, granted, even we as a foundation probably don't do enough job promoting it or letting people know that we do have that kind of facility. We did have like 5 or 6 kids, not more than that, at any given point of time. Along the same lines of on-site childcare, we also provide a nursing room for those new moms that are trying to attend the conference, that want to attend the conference, but they don't want to leave their infant behind. So they can bring the infant, have the entire daycare, the daytime care provided by that on-site care, at the same time go visit the baby whenever they want and be with the baby. Quiet rooms, similar to how Paula mentioned, where recharging ourselves, just like our devices, we need recharge as well. Communication and pronoun stickers. Our events team, again, learns from all of these events, different events. We put the stickers in bowls aside from the registration desk. They're on a separate standing stool by themselves so that people who want those stickers can either go there by themselves without having anyone else to kind of look over the stickers. They can either grab a handful of those stickers because they're also probably stocking up for the rest of the events. I stock up on the pronoun stickers, but I do want to say that I love the pronoun sticker here because it is big, it is readable, it is visible. The stickers that we have are pretty small and they're not really readable. I also love the lanyard because as a migraine person, I can't wear anything around my neck. This is lightweight. I loved wearing this, but I woke up with a migraine today, so I'm not wearing it to make it worse. But there's a lot of things that we, from the foundation team as well, do take care of to make sure that the community is diverse, community is accessible. We have an entire code of conduct that we publish right there and put it up on near the registration desk so people can go through. And the code of conduct is not just what's expected behavior. It also spells out what is the unacceptable behavior, what are the consequences of unacceptable behavior, and how does the foundation team or the events team handle incident response. Should an incident happen, how do we handle it? And if you are a witness or if you're a part of that incident and if you're not comfortable, whom do you go talk to? Who's the first person that you should probably be reaching out to make sure, to let them know that you're not comfortable? And even in the registration forms, for the event registration forms, we are extremely careful as to how we ask a question. We had a really long debate, and at one point of time, there was the comms manager who felt that we were probably debating this for longer than needed, but at the end, we all decided that no, it is not longer than needed. It is needed. That kind of lengthy argument or discussion is needed because we were debating about how to ask the question about gender identification. Do we frame the question as what gender are you comfortable identifying with? Or like, how do we frame the question in a way that expresses the good intent as well? So I think right now we ask them to select a pronoun that they would like to be addressed by. So we have moved from radio buttons to checkboxes because there sometimes are multiple. And we also give the option that if you're not comfortable either sharing this or if you're only comfortable sharing this with the events team, we can make the privacy happen as well. So it's pretty clear in terms of how we want the community to feel when they're at the events and how we also expect our community members to kind of step up and show that empathy, show that kindness to each other. Kindness is definitely something pivotal. I think started with it, be kind, and the entire community has embraced it on how to provide feedback. And it's not just being about nice. Nice is when you have something to say, but you're just not saying it because you don't want to hurt their feelings. But kind is about saying it in a way that is constructive and productive and not hurtful. That's exactly how Pivotal started it, and the entire community embraced it. Are we perfect? Hell no. Do we have a lot to learn? Oh, hell yes. So it's a journey. We are still learning. Some of the things that I made note of, especially yesterday, after listening to Ben's talk, especially is the ball that he used, how you have to kind of make sure that everyone gets a turn. Kind of like the talking stick, incorporating something like that, or even making sure that no one feels that there is an in-group versus out-group. As an open source community, obviously we're trying to do that, but we have a long way to go as well. As Alex mentioned, thinking of those kind of additional things, like the curb cuts. Bendy straws, if you haven't followed up on his offer to go ask him what the bendy straws was all about, here's a reminder. There's a lot of things that I have learned personally through yesterday and today. And even so another example of scaling that makes it apparent whether things are going right or wrong is Lorna mentioned about the type form. I had no idea type form had those kind of accessibility challenges. Now it I guess makes sense, because when I joined the foundation, I wanted to get a sense of who's in the community, and I sent out a survey link, and obviously that was a type form, asking just different questions like, where's your location, like where are you based, so that I could get a sense of regional diversity, locational diversity, gender diversity, employer diversity, and all of these kind of things. Out of those 10,000 people that we have in the community, or just in the Slack channels, I got 150 responses. Now, I'm not sure if that is because no one wanted to take the response, or that only those people if I only could get that much coverage, that only 150 people saw my form. But now it kind of makes me wonder if it also was probably because they just couldn't go through the survey because there was no way they could even answer or respond to the survey. So it's a continuous learning. As a technology, as a community, we're still learning. Even the technology is built in such a way that it is pluggable. 5 years ago, when we built a module, we built it because it felt it was the right thing to do. But now we are making it more pluggable and interoperable with other open source projects because that is the right way to go. For example, we had our own container orchestrator in the past. Now we also integrate with Kubernetes because that is the right thing to do. But 5 years ago, there was no Kubernetes, so we had to build something of our own. Technology is truly accessible in that way. The community is truly accessible in that way because even the project leads are always thinking about how to make the documentation better. Are we even asking the right questions about documentation when we're trying to make it better? So in a sense, I know I'm standing between you and lunch probably. In a sense, how do we build an accessible community? By making that little space. Takes me back to the Michael Jackson song, but if you want to build a better world, it's just about making that little space. Making that little space probably in your mind to give yourself the room to learn, room to grow, room to understand new perspectives, and make room and make space for others to join. Make sure that to make them feel that they're valued, their opinions, their perspectives, their experience, their thought process, whatever their experience, that is appreciated and valued. That making little space is what makes a community accessible, whether it's a community around your open source project or yourself because you're trying to grow your job or career. Thank you.
It's like when you wake up in the morning,